People, what up? What's good? Welcome back to another balance update video. If you don't know what I do in these vids, I look at the card changes and I talk about them. So if y'all can help me get to 20 likes on this vid, I greatly appreciate it. And let's get started, man. So we got a lot of cards they changed, right? What is this? 1, 2, 3, 9 cards. So we got Captain America, Spectrum, Luke Cage, Baron Mordo, Grandmaster, Werewolf by Night, Leader, Leech, and the Sentry. So let's go down the line, go in order, right? So first we got Captain America. And by the way, you guys, I'm gonna try to keep this one short. I did talk about these changes on stream for an extended period of time, so if you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts, definitely check out the VOD. But yeah, we're just gonna talk about these really briefly, right? So they changed Captain America. His old stats were 3 cost, 3 power, and his ongoing ability was your other cards here have +1 power. So they decided to take away one of his power, but they changed his ability to your ongoing cards here have +2 power. This is interesting. I like it. I definitely thought Captain America was weak, and I definitely thought that he needed a change. I guess a small issue I have with this is like you kind of can't really run him. For example, you know, on certain Silver Surfer decks, if you don't have certain cards, which a lot of people are missing cards, that's a whole nother issue. I'm not even going to touch on that. You know, you were able to at least use Captain America in those Silver Surfer decks. Let's say you put him behind a Brood to fill that lane up. You know, if you don't have something like Sebastian Shaw or something like that, right? You would be able to use him in that before, but now you can't. You can only really use them with some Spectrum type stuff or some Destroyer. You know, with you got your Ant-Man lane, you probably got Cosmo, Ant-Man, Warpath, or something like that, Captain America, and then you got Destroyer, maybe Nimrod if you're not running Warpath on that deck, to have one lane where you're filled up, and then you got your Destroyer plus Nimrod lane to try to win that game, right? So he's gonna be, you know, he's gonna be better on that ongoing stuff, better on the Destroyer, but outside of that, you know, it's kind of hard for them to really buff him to be something that I feel like is a really great card. And so let's read what they had to say about it. As you may have seen in various social media discussions, we've been reluctant to buff Captain America. The reasons for that aren't necessarily obvious, but they include keeping the early metagame simple and maintaining existing tutorials. However, this change we eventually arrived at shouldn't threaten either of those. While Spectrum is a strong deck on the competitive side, the Spectrum deck performs worse for newer players with smaller collections. This should be a tidy buff to that archetype for early series play. That's interesting, man, and it's also kind of sad to read that, right? Because you know, by them saying that, you know, they want to keep the early game, the pool 1, pool 2 stuff simple. It's kind of sad because you'll never really see those cards, you know, really become fantastic cards. For example, like how Nebula is, and she's a series 5, like how Red Hulk is. Y'all heard me talk about Red Hulk plenty of times, but you know, those cards like Rocket Raccoon, you know, regular Hulk, you got, you know, Squirrel Girl, Colossus, you know, Captain America, all the pool 1, pool 2 stuff. You know, they want to keep that simple, but I do like what they did, man. I like that they gave him something because he needed something. Right, y'all, let me know what y'all think of this Captain America buff. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And let's move on down to Spectrum. So they took away 1 power from Spectrum. You see, she went from 6'7" to 6'6". I'm assuming that, you know, they're anticipating that ongoing decks are going to get a lot better, or people are more likely to use those because of the Captain America buff. So they want to kind of anticipate that and tone her down. But here's the thing, right? I don't even think that Spectrum is the best you know, choice for ongoing deck. What I've been seeing a lot lately is you got Wave into Onslaught into Sarah, and then you usually play like Blue Marvel, maybe Mystique, Blue Marvel and Mystique, Iron Man, you know, that type of stuff, Omega Red. While granted, all of those are ongoing cards and Spectrum boosts all of them, I feel like she's at least what I've seen, she's never been the #1 choice. But you can do some cool stuff with Spectrum outside of that if you don't have all those type of cards to run that archetype. For example, you could run some Lockdown with Spectrum, Have Professor X use her to boost him as well to make sure that you win in that lane, right? You could do some cool stuff with Claw. He's giving that lane power. You could put her over here, give that middle lane where Claw is some power, right? There's a lot of cool things that you could do with her. I just don't always feel like she's the best in the ongoing archetype, the ongoing strategy. So it is I kind of I disagree with the change in that sense, right? But I understand it. Of course, and let's go ahead and read what they have to say. Of course, the cap change is a pretty decent buff to existing strong Spectrum decks too. We want these decks to hold a spot in the metagame, so we've given it a lot of rope while waiting to see if cards like Enchantress would be enough to fight back. However, the deck has remained a top performer and approach levels that would require a rebalance. That made the cap buff above more dangerous. So this is okay. So yes, it's basically what I was saying, right? They buff cap. They don't want ongoing to get too out of hand. So they're gonna take away power from Spectrum, which I mean is fine. Honestly, they could have took some from Onslaught because I feel like he's the main threat. But both of them are really good in my opinion. So I get it, right? Regardless of whether I agree or disagree, I understand what they're doing in that sense, right? Because we gonna come up on some changes that don't make any sense very soon. So we got Luke Cage up next. They took away 1 power from Luke Cage. I don't think this is too big of a deal, but what it does allow you guys to do now is to be able to run Luke Cage on a Cerebro 3 deck, because before, I mean, you had like Valkyrie, all the 3 cards, right? Let me just think, Scarlet Witch, that type of stuff. You weren't able to stop them from using Scorpion, using Evolve Cyclops, Evolve Wasp, stuff like that would take away your power. But now you're able to include Luke Cage in that deck. So I actually think that even though he's slightly weaker, it allows you to run him in a larger variety of different ways. So I actually kind of see this as a buff in a weird sense. Let's read. One of the best cards in the top Spectrum deck, Luke Cage does extra work by also hampering afflict decks a bit, making it harder for them to contend for the metagame crown. A slightly weaker Luke Cage is good for these decks and also paves the way to slot Luke into successful Cerebro shells once more. So yeah, I mean, it's basically what I was saying, right? They call it hampering afflict decks. I'm assuming, yeah, so that's like the power altering type stuff. I'm assuming is what they mean by that. So yeah, I like this, man. You can still run Luke Cage with Hazmat on a Wong deck. You can still run your own like power afflicting deck, right? Obviously it's always going to be with Hazmat, but you can put them alongside like the Goblins, Annihilus, the Hood, right, Sentry, and be able to take away a lot of points from them while keeping your stuff, right? You're still going to be able to do that to a pretty strong degree, right? So it's not too bad. But this next change we got sucks. Baron Mordo. So his old ability, your opponent draws a card, set its cost to 6. Now the top card of your opponent deck costs 6 until turn 6. Huh? So here's the thing about Baron. This is why I think this is a bad change, right? Baron Mordo, while he's not even the best deck or the best card to use alongside Ronan the Accuser, that is most likely what you would be using him on. Either that or like a mill deck where you just don't want them to be able to play anything. The problem is, you're not having them draw a card anymore. While you might think that having your opponent draw a card is a good thing for them, if you look at all the Ronin players, for example, right? You usually want to, or something that you were usually able to do is, if you have your Ronin out on turn 5, you're able to give them a little bit of extra power on turn 6, right? With Maximus, with Baron Mordo, with Master Mode. Now you can't, right? So and they keep the card in their deck. Again, if it's a 6 cost card, Baron Mordo already doesn't do anything, but now it's worse because he synergizes to an even worse degree with I just said his name, y'all. Y'all know who I'm trying to say. He synergizes works with that card. Let's read what they had to say. I don't like this change, y'all. I'm just letting y'all know that. Baron Mordo has long been one of the weakest cards in Marvel Snap, and y'all made him weaker, often functioning as a worse Yondu for players, in that the drawback could mean your opponent just gets a free card. Let me just keep reading. This tweak to the original design maintains a disruptive intent, but makes sure the effect is more strictly negative for your opponent. I think this is just a incorrect analysis, right? It's not a worse Yondu. Yondu isn't used in the same way that Baron Mordo is used, for one, and now it's saying make the effect more strictly negative for your opponent. So they don't draw a card, so it can be seen that that's more strictly negative for them, but it's not positive for you. So if it used to potentially be negative for them and only positive for you, versus now it's potentially negative for them and not positive for you, he's worse. You understand what I'm saying? Let's move on. Like I said, y'all, the extended version of this is on the vibes, man. I looked at all these cards, so definitely if y'all want to hear me talk about more or these in more detail, check that out, right? But we got Grandmaster up next. So they gave him 2 power, kept his ability the same. I like it. I know some people used to run Grandmaster on a negative deck, right? You be able to play him for free. Obviously you can't do that, but you can still do a lot of cool stuff with him. You know, you run them on a mill deck, get 2 Yondus, maybe 2 cables, something like that. You run them on a destroyed deck, you get your you know, your Carnage and Venom or your Deathlock or whatever to activate again. You know, you're always going to be able to do some cool stuff. I just think the reason why, in my opinion, Grandmaster hasn't been able to be a great card is that his ability is, so if you're not going to use him on turn 2, you typically have to wait until, you know, you get your on reveal cards out. And so that would be like turn 3 and 4, and then you usually want to save turn 5 and 6 to like get all your points and finish the game. The problem is, like, now you got to use Grandmaster on those turns, or you still not, it's not now you have to use them. You've always had to use them later rather than sooner, and it's like, I would rather use my 5, my 6 cost cards at that point, as opposed to activating one of my 3 or 4s again. You understand what I'm trying to say? So I think his ability is too hard to, you know, optimize. Let's go ahead and read what they have to say though. This is a significant but fairly straightforward change to the card, beloved by many players that's failed to find a role in the metagame. While we often aim cards high on release, Grandmaster was a unique case where we felt our testing was unlikely to identify the best possible thing to do with the card. It's just got so many potential applications. It turns out we were too conservative, so we're trying out a sizable buff. Yeah, that's the problem. You can use them in so many different ways that you don't know how to use them. And if you are going to slot him into one of your decks, who are you going to take out? Right? You're going to slot him into your destroy deck. What you going to take out? You're not going to take out Carnage, Venom, or Deathlock, right? So what you going to get rid of? Arnim Zola? Probably not. Death? Probably not. One of your weaker Wolverine type cards? Probably not. You know, you look at your discard deck, you're not going to get rid of Lady Sif, you're not going to get rid of Blade, right? So it's tough. It's that simple. It's just tough to use them. But I hope, you know, to be able to see him a little bit more. Obviously, like I said, you cannot, or you can use him on negative, but he's not going to be free, right? Like negative with Ironheart, activate Ironheart again, but, you know, he's not going to be free. He's going to cost 2. So it's going to be a slightly weaker in that sense. But I mean, y'all let me know what y'all think of this change, bro. But up next, man, we got Werewolf by Night. This is a very big change, and let me try to articulate why it is, right? So 3 cost, 1 power. So I think the problem with Werewolf by Night before was that he's too he costs too much. You know what I'm saying? Now you're going to be able to slot him in on Silver Surfer decks and get a lot of mileage out of him like that. You can even throw him on a Mr. Negative deck, right? Because he's only going to cost 1. And then you're going to be able to use all your Your cheap and zero power, now zero cost cards. Activate their abilities a whole bunch of different times and get your werewolf out, right? Continue to boost your werewolf. You got your bounce decks, which are going to get even stronger with the release of Sasquatch pretty soon, right? You can now slot him into that if you're missing like Hitmonkey or something, to be able to, boost him off your Falcon and all that type of stuff, right? So this is going to be a really big change. I think this is a really big change. It opens him up to be used not only sooner, but in a number of various different ways that he wasn't, that you couldn't use him before. And I think that he's probably going to be a very strong card. I mean, you even look at a mill deck, right? One of the things about the mill deck that some people find issue with is that you're not able to really get a lot of power out of that. But now if you have your werewolf out, and then you play your Yondu and your Cable, and then your Baron Mordo, right? You at least got somebody you can rely on for getting points while taking away stuff from the opponent, right? So, this is going to be a very big deal in my opinion. Let's read what they had to say. Werewolf by Night is a card we've been reticent to live. I don't even know what that means. To let live. I'm assuming it means like reluctant. I don't know why they to let live at 3 costs, as the sheer amount of leaping can get out of hand fast. That said, in the months since its original release, we've also been seeing a lot of strong and successful experimentation among 3 costs, and Werewolf seems a lot more fair in today's world than it did upon release. Plus, being able to start with a small amount of power is more evocative of the Werewolf canon. We want the card to communicate starting weak, becoming a monster, right? And so, this is cool, but once again, y'all, this is going to be a lot stronger, but you're still going to be able to deal with it in the same way that you were. And that is with a lockdown deck, a junk deck, or a Sandman deck. You can't be moving around. If I lock down the location, you can't be moving around, right? If I got rocks all over the field, you can't be moving around if I put down Sandman. You can't be moving around if I put down Mobius. You know what I mean? So you can still deal with it. It's fine. Y'all let me know what y'all think. But this is I think this is actually the dumbest change, right? This leader change. And I'm gonna read what they have to say first, and then I'm gonna explain why it's stupid. So they gave him 1 more power. Okay. Probably not a lot of leaders on the balance bingo at home, but this card has been languishing of late. We're hopeful that leader stocks would rise with the release of Red Hulk, as that made leader a clean answer to one of the best 6 cost cards in the game, but that wound up not happening, but that's not what wound up happening. This buff isn't likely to move the needle in a big way, and we wouldn't want leader to. Leader's not a card players enjoy seeing too often. Even so, there's enough room to improve that we feel confident a point of power will be small but helpful bump. You know why this change doesn't make any sense? Do you know why this is actually a dumb change? You know why this is actually a dumb change? This sentence is, so this whole second 3/4 of the paragraph is why this is stupid. More specifically, this part. We were hopeful that leader's stocks would rise with the release of Red Hulk, as that made leader a clean answer to one of the best cards in the game, or that's what they thought. And then they continue on to say, but that's not what wound up happening. Why buff? So you release a card. So you gosh, you guys, I'm trying not to get mad. Guys, you release the Red Hulk. You already know that card is a uncounterable card. So you're hoping that one of the most annoying cards, as you acknowledged it to be, would be the thing that counters that card. So you release a strong card which is going to be seen on every deck, and you have an annoying card which you don't want players to see too often that you think was going to counter it. Therefore, you're expecting everybody to use the annoying card to counter the strong card. You don't want, so you're acknowledging that you don't want the card to be too strong, but you release a strong card that you guys understand, like it doesn't. Why buff leader when you can nerf Red Hulk? I'm not even gonna try to explain why this doesn't make sense. I think you guys understand that it doesn't make sense that they buff the leader. If you're saying that Red Hulk is one of the best 6-cost cards in the game and there's no counter to it, why won't you nerf it? Why would you buff an annoying card to try to deal with it if you don't want players to see annoying cards in the game? If you don't want annoying cards to be too strong, like I mean, I can't use any other word but stupid for this change. It's absolutely dumb. Nerf the Red Hulk. Nerf the Red Hulk. I'm not gonna continue, but that's literally the answer. I don't care. I mean, my opinions on leader, he is what he is, right? He kind of reminds me of pre-patch Annihilus in a sense. You know, I don't care about leader. The reason why they changed him is stupid, is what I'm trying to say. They're changing him to try to deal with Red Hulk better, but they don't want him to be seen in the meta. But Red Hulk is the top card in the meta, and they want him to be able to counter the Red Hulk. And so they're going to buff an annoying card instead of nerfing a broken card. Let's move on. We got Leech, right? Changed him back to 5 costs and gave him a little bit more power. So obviously Leech was a very big issue, right? You got the Leech Blink stuff, and this is why, in my opinion, this is why I think a lot of people are using Onslaught instead, like Onslaught Tribunal. One, because Tribunal was one of the weekly spotlight cards, and two, because, you know, if you're gonna leech me on turn 4, then I might as well just not even use an on-reveal strategy, because I'm not gonna be able to play any of my cards the rest of the game. I might as well just use some ongoing stuff. So that was the issue with having him at a 4 cost. But obviously they moved him down to a 4 cost because they thought that he needed a little bit of extra help. So they're reverting him back to 5, but giving him a little bit more power because they thought he needed a little bit of extra help. I understand this, right? Let's go ahead and read. That's at least how I see it. Speaking of unexpected outcomes, we decided to take Leech back to 5 costs. Our primary Leech target with the initial move to 4 costs was Annihilus. So, okay. Though we did see value in strengthening one of the few answers to a handful of other powerful in-game threats, however, Annihilus wasn't substantially affected by the increased presence of Leech, and the win rate for Leech itself grew higher than we'd hoped to see against other strategies, narrowing the range of competitive viability with the game. Of course, we've also heard that the public discontent around leading this hard on Leech as a valve with the metagame, and we determined we won't want this card bearing that kind of weight. That said, 5-3 was just not really playable, so we're giving back some more power in an effort to keep Leech meaningful. You guys, this is, so they nerf other cards to deal with strong cards. So let me just give y'all an example, right? That you'll be able to understand. If I ban somebody off my YouTube channel for being annoying, right? And I have a new annoying person in my comments, in my chat, I'm not gonna unban the annoying person to try to deal with the new person. I'm going to focus on the new person and get rid of them. Why are you changing Leech to affect the Annihilus? Why are you changing Leader to affect the Red Hulk? If you think the Red Hulk is too strong, maybe you should nerf the Red Hawk. If you think Annihilus is too strong, maybe you should nerf Annihilus. And so that's what they did. You know, Sentry is one of the main cards in the Annihilus deck. So this makes sense from that standpoint. But it's like, I don't understand. Like, why are they like, what are like? Let me know what y'all think of Leech. Let's just move on to Sentry, bro. Like, I'm trying to keep this short. So last but not least, we got Sentry. So they took away 2 power from both him and the Void. So he's 4/8, and now the Void is 4/8. So here's the thing, you guys. I actually think that this is better for the Annihilus deck, right? And so here's the reason why. You used to be able to Shang Tree the Sentry, right? You used to be able to do that. Now you can't. So now, you know, instead of them losing 10 points of power, they're only losing 2. You know what I mean? So you're actually making Annihilus stronger, right? -10 versus -8, you're already, if you're not able to deal with the Void with Valkyrie or destroying it or locking that lane down with Professor X, you're not overcoming that deficit. You understand what I'm saying? -8, that's I mean, -10, -8. Hobgoblin is already a great card, right? He's only -8. A lot of the times when you play Hobgoblin against somebody, they can't overcome it. So this change is negligible, and this only improves the Annihilus deck, right? So instead of just taking some points away from Annihilus, they take some away from Sentry, which is like, it doesn't make sense. But let's read what they have to say, man. We've determined it's necessary to weaken the Annihilus shell in the interest of the metagame health, and this adjustment is in pursuit of that goal. We've hoped to avoid it entirely. Sentry at 10 power is a more interesting card. I agree, especially with stuff like Scar. To that end, we've explored potential revisions to Annihilus instead, but we weren't. Okay, so this is, at least they said why they weren't able to change them. We weren't able to find a change we can confidently stand on in time for this OTA. I give him that. You know what I'm saying? I'll give him that. We may revisit Sentry later if that works to prove more fruitful, but for now, we're just reducing some of the bite that combo packs by reverting Sentry to its original stats. I understand this. Will I accept this excuse? Once again, y'all, this is a $118 million game. You know, I understand it, but once again, this is not just to, at least, I mean, y'all couldn't stand on taking like 1 or 2 points away from Annihilus if y'all see him as that big of an issue, right? Like, you know, I think you guys understand, right? I'm not gonna keep, you know, reiterating things, but y'all let me know what y'all think of this patch, man. Do y'all agree with the patch? Do y'all disagree with you know, the changes? Do y'all agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. But as always, y'all be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video, man. We're on the road to 2K subs. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
Yeah.